What's good, YouTube? It's Louis Gusto. Welcome back to my channel. Today, we're in a major league neighborhood where professional baseball has been played for the last 100 plus years. It was once home to a religious academic institution, but quickly expanded into a working class neighborhood. And today, it's a mecca for American sports. That's right, we're in Wrigleyville, Chicago. And in this video, we're gonna answer some questions like, what was this neighborhood like before Wrigley Field was built? What's it like to live next to a major league baseball stadium? And how close was this neighborhood to being called Weigmanville? Before we get started, I have a trivia question for you guys. As we all know, Wrigley Field is the home of the Chicago Cubs, but over the years, it's been the home to several other professional sports teams, including another baseball team, several football teams, and even a soccer team. Which teams were they? And with all that out the way, let's go ahead and explore Wrigleyville, Chicago. Wrigleyville is part of the Lakeview community area, and although boundaries of Chicago neighborhoods can change from year to year, official city maps have Wrigleyville bounded on the north by Irving Park Road, on the west by Southport, on the east by Sheffield, and on the south by Addison. Nearby neighborhoods include Buena Park and Boys Town. To get to Wrigleyville, take the CTA Red Line to the Addison stop, where you'll be greeted by some dope Cubs murals. You can also take the 22 or the 152 bus to Wrigleyville. If you're riding your bike, go ahead and ride up Clark Street or the Lakefront Trail to Addison Street. There are so many ways to get to Wrigleyville, but you already know my recommendations. Walking, biking, or taking public transportations are gonna be your best bets. Wrigleyville has gone from American Indian village to working class neighborhood to tourist destination. When Chicago was inhabited by its first people, tribes like the Miami and Winnebago lived in this area, and Clark Street, arguably the most well-known Wrigleyville street, was a major trail. It's important to remember the contributions of Native Americans to the city of Chicago. As recently as 350 years ago, these people lived, met, traded, and traveled right here. Before the baseball park was built, this area was part of land owned by Joseph Sheffield, namesake of Sheffield Avenue. He bought it around 1851. Years later, a minister acquired it, and in 1874, St. Mark's Lutheran Church was built right here. Then later, in 1891, the Chicago Lutheran Theological Seminary was built. The surrounding neighborhood experienced rapid expansion thanks to the construction of the Addison L station, which was built in 1900. Due to this growth, the seminary moved out in 1910, leaving most of the property vacant. Fast forward to 1914, and restaurant entrepreneur Charles Weigman had a park built on this site to house his Chicago Whales. The Whales played in baseball's Federal League, but after it was disbanded, they merged with the Chicago Cubs, who then moved from their home on the west side to Lakeview's Weigman Park. Over the next few years, Weigman's once thriving restaurant business began failing, and he fell into some financial struggles. Because of this, he started selling off team shares to minority owners, including chewing gum magnate William Wrigley Jr., who eventually had the majority of shares. In 1920, the stadium was renamed Cubs Park, and 6 years later, it was christened Wrigley Field, after the team's new owner. Had he kept succeeding in the food service industry, perhaps Charles Weigman would have retained ownership of the team and the stadium, and maybe this neighborhood would have been called Weigmanville. For the past 100 plus years, Wrigley Field and the Cubs have shaped this entire neighborhood. As for when it was first referred to as Wrigleyville, I couldn't find any solid info on that. Obviously, it had to be sometime after 1926, but if you know anything, go ahead and drop it in the comments below. If you thought Wrigley Field was the only historic part of this neighborhood, you'd be wrong. In 1851, the Hebrew Benevolent Cemetery was founded. It is Chicago's oldest Jewish eternal resting place. Wonder Cemetery is also within the bounds of Wrigleyville. Having been founded in 1859, it's also another historic part of this area.
The Addison CTA stop opened in 1900, and as mentioned earlier, before Wrigley Field was one of the driving forces of the rapid expansion of the Lakeview area.
The Alta Vista Terrace District is Chicago's very first landmark, having been designated in 1971. These homes are the work of real estate developer Samuel Gross, who designed them to be replicas of row houses in London. There are 20 homes on either side of the street, all with various architectural styles. Each home is designed to mirror the one diagonally opposite it. The Alta Vista Terrace District is a hidden gem in Chicago and a really interesting stroll back in time. When talking about the architecture of Wrigleyville, of course we have to begin with the stadium. It is a rare surviving jewel box baseball park and was designed by Zachary Taylor Davis. The term jewel box refers to a time period after the wooden ballparks, but before modern multi-purpose stadiums between 1909 and 1915. And it's easy to forget that we had another jewel box baseball park in this city, Old Comiskey, which was built in 1910 but sadly demolished in 1991. These ballparks were known for their two-tiered designs, which took advantage of steel supports to make the upper and lower decks have equally good views of the field. But they were perhaps best known for being built within the constraints of existing city blocks, taking advantage of Major League Baseball's relaxed field dimension regulations. Architects of these stadiums had to be extremely creative, and the results were pretty legendary. Of these jewel box baseball parks, only two remain: Fenway Park in Boston and Wrigley Field, which was made a Chicago landmark in 2004. Being a classic Chicago neighborhood, Wrigleyville is also full of typical local home styles, including worker cottages, bungalows, garden apartment buildings, and graystones. The Alta Vista Terrace District features various architectural styles, including Greek Revival, Gothic, Romanesque, Federal, and many more. The Chicago Fire Department Engine Company 78 building features amazing brickwork and classically inspired ornamentation. It was built in 1915. The home of Metro Chicago was built in 1927 as the North Side Auditorium building, designed in the Spanish Baroque Revival style. We must also mention that much of the new construction around Wrigley Field is modern architecture with no obvious nod to anything that existed in the area prior. While I'm sure that the interiors are designed with all the modern amenities, it's kind of a shame that more care wasn't taken to match the historic architecture of this neighborhood instead of making everything look like a big, boring suburban shopping mall. All right, we're at Big Star in Wrigleyville. It's a pretty good local taco option right across from the stadium. We have al pastor, barbacoa, papas, and pescado. So we had to scan a QR code to reserve a table, then we got seated, and there's all kinds of regulations, but you know, we've been talking about architecture and history all morning long. It's time to eat. While this isn't exactly a food tour of Wrigleyville, drop a comment below if you'd like to see some food tours on this channel. We were still hungry after eating at Big Star, so we stopped at Roost, which claims to be the best made chicken in the state. We got ourselves a fried chicken sandwich, house style, on a French brioche bun with a side of seasoned fries and coleslaw. You can find Roost in a couple different locations across the city of Chicago, and they're known as a Carolina kitchen. If you're into that sort of food, give it a try. We have to walk to eat by Wrigley, but let's try it. It's a nice piece of chicken breast, crunchy on the outside. The bun is nice and soft, good little sweet flavor. Some nice toppings in there. Other great places to eat and drink in Wrigleyville include Do Right, a local favorite for old-fashioned donuts. Smoke Daddy offers Chicago-style barbecue. Swift & Sons Tavern and Oyster Bar is new to the area. Happy Camper is a fun, new-school pizza joint. Westtown Bakery and Tap is a great spot to grab coffee. And Wrigleyville Dogs offers street food classics like gyros and Chicago-style hot dogs. Outside of the Cubs, Wrigleyville is perhaps best known for its sports bar scene. You can visit places like Cubby Bear, Sluggers, Murphy's Bleachers, Vines on Clark, and so many more. Let us know your favorite sports bar in this neighborhood. There really isn't much to do in Wrigleyville. Psych. Of course, at the top of the list is going to Cubs games. And even if you're not a baseball fan, it's worth attending a Cubs game at least once in your life. Day games are a fun and nifty throwback to the olden days of the sport, while night games offer a different energy. And it's amazing to be in that electric crowd after a Cubs home run or victory. Wrigley Field also doubles as a concert venue, and when the Cubs aren't in town, you could take a tour of this historic stadium.
Gallagher Way is a new outdoor space where a variety of events are held throughout the year, like movies in the park and Chris Kindle Market. You can also catch the game on the big screen over there and listen to the crowd.
If you've ever wanted a uniquely Chicago view of a baseball game, the Wrigley rooftops offer a cool view and experience. I can't think of anywhere else where you can watch a pro sports game from somebody's roof. Lucky Strike Social is a modern spin on the classic game of bowling. The Budweiser Brickhouse Tavern attempts to replicate the classic Chicago dive bar. Metro is a music venue in a building that was once a Swedish community center. Kelly Park is a peaceful stretch of land dedicated to a World War II vet from the neighborhood. Holy Trinity Lutheran Church continues the Lutheran legacy in Wrigleyville. You can also shop for Cubs gear and sportswear at places like Wrigleyville Sports, Sports World, and Clark Street Sports. If you're visiting the neighborhood for an extended stay, check out hotels like the Wheelhouse, the Inn at Wrigleyville, and Hotel Zachary. If you're thinking about living in Wrigleyville, this part's for you. Studio apartments start in the mid-800s. One-bedroom apartments go for as low as $1,200, and two-bedroom apartments are $1,500 plus. Median home and condo sales in Wrigleyville, about $500,000. It's easy to forget that this is a typical Chicago neighborhood with working-class roots, so there are homes and apartments all over the area. And if you live on Sheffield or Waveland, you may even get a home run ball souvenir. Living in Wrigleyville puts you close to dining, nightlife, the CTA, and Lake Michigan. The vibe in Wrigleyville is based on America's pastime. For more than half the year, this neighborhood is buzzing about baseball, with day games, night games, and other events that take place in and around Wrigley Field, like concerts and festivals like Christkindl Market. There are plenty of places to party, eat, drink, and shop for Cubs gear. This is also a very touristy area, so you're gonna see visitors from all over taking pictures and just awing at the sights. But outside the immediate stadium area, you've got a relatively chill neighborhood vibe. Like most neighborhoods in Chicago, Wrigleyville has undergone a ton of changes, starting with the Lutheran seminary being torn down and a baseball stadium being built in its place. Over the past few years, the changes have been plentiful and dramatic. Have these changes been for the better or the worse? Well, I guess it depends on whom you ask. Before these new changes, many areas around the stadium were just empty lots. Of course, there are some old favorites that are gone, but many remain, like Sports World, Murphy's Bleachers, and the Cubby Bear. Walk a block or two away and suddenly you're in the heart of typical Chicago residential blocks. As a Northsider, I love that I can ride my bike up here or take a 10-minute bus ride to see one of my favorite sports teams. I also enjoy coming up here to dine out or just to be in the midst of this classic historic stadium. I'm happy that this historic stadium has been renovated, restored, and kept active. It is truly a Chicago treasure, and while some may miss the Wrigleyville of old, we should still appreciate what we have here, a jewel box baseball stadium in the heart of a Chicago neighborhood. Did you get the answer to the trivia question? Over the years, several other teams have called Wrigley Field home, including the original team, the Chicago Whales, several football teams, including the short-lived Chicago Tigers, the traveling team Hammond Pros, the Chicago Bears, now in Soldier Field, the Chicago, currently Arizona Cardinals, and the Chicago Sting of a professional soccer league. Shout out to the folks who requested the Wrigleyville neighborhood guide. In the comments, let me know what neighborhood you'd like to see in a future guide. If you enjoyed this look at Wrigleyville, Chicago, go ahead and finesse that like button and subscribe if you're new to the channel to join the Gusto gang. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next time, but for now, we're out of here. Peace. It was once the home to a religious academic institution and quickly in Cubs murals. You can also take the Old Comiskey Park, which was built in 1901, which was built in 1901? 1910. After wooden ballparks, but before the modern Are we rolling? Okay, cool. All right. There are also plenty of places to eat. There are places to eat. Let's go ahead and explore Wrigleyville. All right, overtime. Okay.